Welcome back. Starting with the tea time, we've got a video for Father Douglas here. Tell us what you think about this. I want you to hit it as hard as possible.
Okay.
No, Seth, that the real danger is Sharia law. Sharia law. And you can tell when you go to a place like Abu Dhabi or Riyadh, like, oh man, I hope we don't ever wind up with a society like this with a rape rate of 0, where you leave your keys in your Lamborghini and don't ever worry about it being stolen. And, if people want to get wasted, they do it at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't.
Oh boy, I hope we don't wind up with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, Sharia law is obviously just a punchline. I don't know that too many people actually believe in the reality of that. And sure, like I said, I'm a lawyer. I actually studied legal philosophy.
Right.
Sharia is not that different from other legal codes. A lot of our own legal code, the Anglo-Saxon common law, Anglo-American common law, derives ultimately from religious authorities.
All right, let me break in. So this guy,
Seth Harp.
what?
Seth Harp and Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, I know Tucker. I don't know who this other guy is. I don't know anything about him, so I'm not going to comment there. The problem you're witnessing here is Tucker Carlson has become a bit of a ratings prostitute. And what he's doing is he's just trying to generate followership without actually generating any type of substantive content. So what's fascinating to me is what you're watching here is the start of Tucker Carlson's undoing. I think everybody that's watching the news knows that this guy is no conservative. He's no friend to the conservative movement. He's basically his own thing that's just going after his own ratings. And he's a big deal, right? He has a huge audience. I mean, this is a guy who can ring up the Kremlin and say, I'll have a sit down with Putin and get it, right? Let me tell you something about Tucker Carlson. He's the only guy in the world that gets fired and it's a promotion.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? His audience, his viewership, the followers, they all followed him. Here's the challenge of what you're doing with, for instance, he recently brought on a guy named Nick Fuentes, and, they're just spewing crazy rhetoric and platform these guys is bizarre to me. So, first of all, let me just say something about Riyadh and Saudi Arabia and the 0 rape rate they have. Well, for one, you have to, in Riyadh, you have to have so much evidence, like in some parts of Sharia law, you have to have 4 male witnesses to prove that you were raped. Well, it's often very hard to come up with 4 male witnesses to prove something. And so while Riyadh has a note, for all you that are listening to this, they have a lesser criteria of proof than that alone, but let it be known that the reason they have a 0 rape is because confessing or reporting a rape isn't worth the persecution, the demonization, and even the public excoriation that you'll go through. Okay? So, for instance, in the past, you've even had the royalty, King Abdullah, who came weighing in on a civil court case and pardoned rapists. Okay, so you don't want to be like Riyadh. The thing about Sharia law is if you don't have the proof and it can be found that you're an unclean or an adulterous woman, you can get in serious persecution over that. Okay, but here's the thing you got to realize is Carlson is choosing to platform these bizarre and crazy ideas. Okay, and like, think about what him platforming Nick Fuentes. It's bizarre to me. Okay, Carlson was one of a number of the kooky online influencers that suggested that the Charlie Kirk's assassination was because of Israel or whatever. And I don't know. I'm not going to weigh into that, but I'm just going to say the people who lined up to say that, they also lined up to say so much other bizarre stuff that you can't fathom where they're going with it. So Carlson proves again when he has this appalling degenerate dirtbag called Nick Fuentes on his podcast. He invited onto his show an avowed Holocaust denier and racist who said, I quote, "Hitler's awesome. That guy's great." So you got a huge problem there. But he gives this guy, Fuentes, one of the largest audiences of his career. And do you think he actually pushes back? No, because what these guys are doing, what Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, you know what they really are? They're reputation launderers. They're for people that can be racist and be bigots and be hateful. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to platform and they're going to give them a way to launder their reputation to get back in the good graces. So you got Tucker Carlson, who thinks he's a great friend of J.D. Vance, but brings Fuentes on, who Fuentes says, he's a fat mixed racer, just all kinds of stuff. Nowhere does Tucker Carlson try to rein him in. In fact, Tucker Carlson was rougher on Ted Cruz than he was on any of these guys. And now he's out spewing joy and gladness for Riyadh and for Sharia law. And he's saying sarcastically, boy, I hope that we don't end up like them. My response to that is, I just recently read Douglas Murray's op-ed piece on Tucker Carlson, and it's called Conspiracy Kook. Tucker Carlson is no conservative and no friend to Charlie Kirk and J.D. Vance, by Douglas Murray, published November 3rd, 2025 in the New York Post. Douglas Murray ends his article saying, "A man who seems intent on normalizing Holocaust deniers and destroying the MAGA movement from within," and these are his last words in his article, he says, "some patriot, some conservative, and some friend." So what I would say to that is, Tucker Carlson is unhinged, and what you're watching is the trajectory and the downward spiral of a man who is self-imploding his own influence.
Yeah. So all that to say that none of these voices out there are relevant. They're not healthy to be taking in. And that leaves you with Truth Talk being the premier option for what you can listen to, because we're covering the Bible and politics.
There you go.
So only listen to us.
And Biblos, and Kingdom Speak, and God Quest, and all the rest of them. I'm a promoter of all things apostolic. Everybody does it their own way. And I was recently at East Coast Conference, which I want to give a shout out to Pastor and Sister Urshan and the First Pentecostal Church of Durham. Crazy, amazing job. I mean, it's unbelievable how hospitable and kind they are. Thank you very much. Now, here's the deal. I was there and I was doing a Second Chance Ranch event, which was a great delight. And Dana, who is maybe going to get to watch this because they're going to send it to her, she rented First Pentecostal Church the horses that I used to do the demonstration. While she was over there, Dana had, the lady who we rented the horses from, she had a little puppy dog, and I was petting him and said, boy, if I could take that little puppy home, I'd take him home with me. And so she said, actually, he's for sale. And so I bought this little puppy, who is now down here at my feet, napping just wonderfully. This little guy is adorable. I have named him Archie, and he came home from Durham with us, and now he has his own doggy cam on Truth Talk. So if it cuts somehow to the floor and my little puppy is right under me, he's a champ, and he helps me study, and he literally, quite literally, is a consumer of world-class content. He ate several of my notes before the podcast today. And so he consumes this material, and this is the result right here of what it looks like. If you watch Truth Talk, this is the kind of peace that will come over your life. Okay. All right. So let me get on with the episode. We've taken quite a bit by me giving a little bit of context for the Tucker Carlson implosion and also introducing Archie, my little Aussie shepherd that I'm quite in love with and have given him a doggy cam. Okay, so let me say that I want to talk about lock in, the words, the terms lock in. I've been hearing a lot lately about people who are locking in, and I get it, before you preach, or there's about an hour or two on Monday that I come in and I sit down here in the studio and I lock in on a task, and then I'm off to the next thing. And then I come back into the studio on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights, and we do a lot of pre-production prep on it. I get my articles, I get everything together, all my news, because I'm trying to create a Christian worldview for my listeners. So I understand the benefit of lock-in, and I understand especially what preachers are saying before they preach. But I recently ran across an article, and it showed up in a couple periodicals, and it also showed up in a couple newspapers, and it was talking about the dangers of locking in. So it talks about, what if your temporary focus becomes your everyday lifestyle? In the past few years, the term lock-in has been used to describe the intense focusing on a task, goal, or objective, or committing firmly to, reach a plan or a decision. It's used by everyone from presidents to preachers to school teachers. Let's lock in here. However, many people have taken this term to an extreme. People post about locking in for weeks on end, sleeping less, skipping meals, cutting themselves off from everything else. If that is what success requires, they're willing to lock in. However, there's some new research that has come out. Forbes magazine is where I want to pick up on this today. I ran across this in Forbes magazine first. Preston, if you want to put that up. The research study published in Forbes magazine that found that job burnout is at an all-time high. Okay? So they're saying that job burnout is at 66%, okay, in 2025. Now, here's what's fascinating. The 66% is kind of that's a general number that is that's a nominal kind of number where it's just the floating number of it all, okay? But when you break it down, it's much higher than 66%. 81% of all 18 to 24-year-olds, okay, are reporting regular burnout because of being continuously locked in on a goal or a work environment. 83% of 25 to 34-year-olds are reporting regular burnout due to a lifestyle of being locked in. Most reported that they are simply overworking themselves while feeling the pressure of overworking themselves, okay, of everything around them as well, okay? There's no denying that consistent hard work leads to success, and it can create real and measurable results. And that's good. That's something that we need to work on. That's something. But the problem is you can become so locked in that you lock yourself out of key components that you need for a healthy psychological bearing, an emotional balance. All these things, your spirituality, all of the above, require that you lock in to a degree that you're able to sustain it. So I'm more interested in sustainable growth than I am spits and spurts. Now, a lot of times when we are studying, and a lot of times when we are prepping and we are getting ready for a test or getting ready for something, there is this deep and passionate desire to limit ourselves to everything that would distract us from that course. But if that is your life, you can lock yourself out of the many, many benefits and rewards that it takes to have a gracious relationship with others in your life. So I seriously ask you to be careful that you don't become so tuned out because you're focused on something. Marriages fail. Christian experiences fail. Ministries implode and collapse. I'm convinced that a lot of this is happening because we do not recognize the fragility of the human mind and the human psyche. By not recognizing this, we tend to overwork ourselves. We tend to beat ourselves down to a place to where we can't actually function like this anymore or any longer. And so what you need to learn to do is to do things in small incremental spits and spurts instead of just mad dashes that never end. I know the vogue of beating oneself down. I know it's very, very important for a society to say, well, this is how we're going to do it and how we're going to manage it. But at the end of the day, you cannot just beat yourself into a place where you're more productive. Because while it feels like we're more productive, we actually are less acutely aware of what's going on and what we're lacking. So my recommendation would be to study every day, and you will learn more instead of doing a crash course. And I think our culture is set up to where we want someone to come in to be a revivalist and give us a crash course in church growth. But church growth doesn't come from having an evangelist come in. Church surge will happen. Church edification can happen. But what's going to create a culture of revival and growth is the culture that you have in your church of development, of learning, of pursuing the greatest causes and the greatest objectives continually, okay? Working at it every week, having an atmosphere and a culture that's giving people a well-rounded diet between the feeding the flock of God, which the Holy Ghost hath made me an overseer, and to be somebody that's able to stand there and say, this is what God wants us to be and do. And then to be someone who's invitational, okay? Pastors should be evangelistic, not just in the sense of speaking out the gospel and speaking out the invitation to church. Will you join church? Will you come to church? But when people come, there ought to be a culture of development, of growth, of learning, where people say, I want to be a part of a culture who is going somewhere and doing something. This is important. Now, if you exercise regularly, your body will get stronger. But a lot of times we want to lose weight before the wedding. And so we go on crash diets. And what we've got to realize is that God is not into spiritual liposuction. God is a dietitian. God is not going to give you a surgery fast to where, boom, there you are. You're a Christian. There you are. You're a real Christian, mature warrior for Christ. It doesn't happen like that. The way it happens is daily disciplines, daily prayer, daily denial, daily mortifying the deeds of the flesh, daily denying myself and taking up my cross and following Him. But what is often forgotten is that real progress doesn't come from working nonstop. Real progress is actually from working consistently. If we could get into a consistent prayer life, if we could get into a consistent study habit, if we could get into what it is to be consistent with our daily walk with God, with our daily conflict resolution, with our daily objectives and our daily goals, what would happen if we could just improve 1% each day? This leads to much more long-term growth than pressuring yourself to work full throttle or to starve yourself or to change your eating habits and life to the degree that you cannot sustain that kind of a life. Okay? So these are questions that we want to ask you. Do you get enough rest? Whatever that means to you. If it's sleep, it's sleep. If it's private time, it's private time. If it's reading and relaxation, do you get that? Do you have enough time with friends? People who are not taking your brain for a walk all the time. People that you are not training and you are not developing, but people who will just talk to you about the weather, about the harvest, the rain, how the cattle, how the horses are doing, how the books are selling, how the stock market's going. Friends that will just talk with you about things that you're interested in, checking in on your health, checking in on your emotional quotients. Do you have hobbies? I cannot stress enough the value and the mandate to have a hobby. Now, I know this is a hotly contested subject among preachers. Okay? But I don't think we are less spiritual because we have a hobby. You want to hunt, you want to fish, you want to ride quads, you want to ride a horse. In fact, I think my hobby is collecting hobbies. I don't get to do any of it very much, but I certainly love to have a good hobby. I love to be with friends. Every year, for the last several years, I don't actually remember how many years, I think 3 or maybe 4, I don't remember, but I've had the privilege of going on a yearly fishing trip with Keith and Dan DeMann with my boys here in the northern part of Alberta on a fly-in fishing trip. It is one of the things that unpack me and unwind me more than anything else in my life. It is so far out of the norm of my life, of what I live as I'm flying and traveling and preaching and doing podcasts and pastoring and selling and buying antiquarian books. And it's just, they provide a service for me that I don't even think those men, those brothers and friends of mine, they wouldn't even know what it is to just have a place where I can let my hair down. You've been waiting for me to say that. Where I can just relax, where I can just enjoy friends and family. I think people don't want to follow someone who's burned out. Someone who busy, I don't think people care about that. I don't think people are stressed out because I'm busy. I don't think people are stressed out by my work schedule and my workload and my travel schedule. I don't think that's what stresses people out. I think people get stressed out whether you're busy or not busy, whether you have hobbies or you don't have hobbies. People are stressed out when you're stressed out. Okay? It's just like riding a horse. When you get on a horse and you've got the nervous jitters and you're so kind of panicked about, oh man, this horse is going to buck me off. I had a bad experience. And all of that tension and anxiety, it gets in your shoulders and in your back. And then it moves down through your thighs and your legs. And all of a sudden the horse is feeling the jolt of that anxiety. And guess what that does? That makes the horse jittery and nervous and uncomfortable. Okay? But you've got to calm yourself as a rider, because riders who are stressed, they create stressed out horses. Stressed out horses with stressed out riders create stressful and anxious experiences. You want calm experiences? Master calm. You want calm, even as busy as I am, even as hectic and crazy as my life is, there's a measured calm. In an airport, in an airplane, in a car. It may be work, but it's very measured. It's working on it, improving 1% each day, or just long-term growth and pressuring myself to work in small increments to the degree that I can sustain it. And I want to be sustained. I want to be sustained by the work that I'm doing. I don't want to resent my church. I don't want to resent the ministry. I don't want to resent what God is doing in my life. So therefore, I have to manage my life so that it kind of comes into control. Why? I don't want my locked in moments to be antagonistic and lock me out of my rest. I don't want my locked in motives to lock me out of friends. I don't want my lock in when it comes to executing certain things in ministry and in preaching. I don't want to be so locked in that I'm locked out from my wife and I'm emotionally Stonewall Jackson when it comes to being together with my family. I want to be open. I want my emotions to be present with them. Okay? I want to be able to take my calling and take my job, and I want to take what I'm doing serious, but I don't want to take who I am so serious that I lock myself out of great joy and great pleasure. I don't want to become so serious that I don't have love, companionship, and rest and restoration in my life. There's an important thing. The Bible, you have to sort this out, and I'd love to do a podcast on this sometime. But does the church of the New Testament need to honor the fourth commandment? Thou shalt keep the Sabbath and make it holy. Now, I believe Jesus Christ is the Sabbath. I believe that the sabbatical year and rhythms have linked themselves in to the annual high holy day of the Feast of First Fruits or the Feast of Pentecost. I believe that Jesus Christ is the rest wherein the weary have cause to rest. I believe that in Christ, Hebrews chapter 4, Matthew chapter 11, all these things lay out that Jesus Christ is Lord of the Sabbath. He is Lord of the rest. And there's no greater way to make that day holy, okay, than to receive the baptism of the Holy Spirit in one's life. But in all my world and all my running and all my people and friends around me, I need a Sabbath. I need spiritual rest in my life. And that is through walking in the Spirit. And so I need my soul and my spirit and my mind and my attitude to look a lot like Archie down here. And this is what it looks like when you rest. And so, if you listen to Truth Talk, and we're coming up on 1,000 YouTube subscribers, and when we cross that, if you will help us, we're about 135 away from that. If you'll help us cross that, when we do that, we're going to do a giveaway. It's going to be comprised of a couple things. One is they will get a custom Bible from Salvador Marino. We're at about 200 episodes now. They will also, at episode 225, they will be a virtual studio attendee. You'll come in virtually on the studio. You'll be a part of the prep. You'll be a part of the banter that goes on. You'll be a part of Archie eating my notes. And you will get all of the notes for the podcast. You'll get all the episodes, reports and papers, whatever I took to generate. Whatever book that I've promoted that week, you'll get that book that is featured in that episode. And so you'll be a part of it. And you'll probably be able to help Preston work on Tea Time. So cross 1,000 subscribers and come help me produce a episode of Truth Talk. Thank you very much for being faithful listeners, and also let me know what you think of my new doggy cam and what you think of Archie being on Truth Talk.